Welcome everyone to the Table Talk series where we're going to cover the NFPA 72, specifically Chapter 14, the visual inspection table and the test table for all the individual components, each component representing different tests and inspections that we need to do. At the end of this first component, we'll have a couple test questions if you want to try to see if you can apply what you learned. But we're going to cover these one by one in each video. Hopefully it will help you understand a little more about what the main videos are, the how-to videos that I do. Those are all coming from the original codes out of the book, which we're going to cover here. So in the how-to videos, you could see how to apply those codes practically in the field. And with these Table Talk series videos, you can learn about the individual codes themselves. So you get a better understanding, hopefully. So we titled this the NFPA 72 2025 National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code. This is Chapter 14, Inspection, Testing, and Maintenance Tables, an Educational Field Guide. And this is component number 1 of the series. Now, component number 1 is going to cover the main two tables, which is table 14.3.1, which is the visual inspection, and table 14.4.3.2, which is the testing table. So each component has a part in a visual inspection table and the testing table. Some individual components will say reserved in the book, and we'll go over that. It's basically just a placeholder, so they haven't made a code yet, but they can in the future. So we're going to first cover what component number 1 is, and it is simply a visual inspection of all equipment. So let's read through this. So here we are. Component number 1. We're starting right here. Is the broadest inspection in Chapter 14. It applies to every piece of fire alarm equipment in the system without exception. The purpose is to ensure that changes to the building, its occupancy, its environment, or the equipment itself have not compromised the performance of the fire alarm system since the last inspection. This is an annual visual inspection covering 8 specific categories. It is not a functional test. The inspector observes, assesses, and documents any identified change that could affect equipment performance must be reported and evaluated. Here's an important note right here. Table 14.4.3.2, which is the testing table for component number 1, simply directs the inspector to see table 14.3.1, which is the visual inspection table. There are no additional functional tests requirements beyond what is specified in the inspection table. And some references, applicable references 14.3.4 and 14.3.5 of NFPA 72 provide additional guidance on the scope and documentation requirements and apply to the component number 1, all equipment inspection. Now here's kind of a visual diagram for component number 1, all equipment inspection categories. So you're looking for equipment modifications, which is changes to devices and panels. Building and occupancy modifications, which is construction and use changes. Environmental conditions, temperature, humidity, dust. Device location, position changes verified. Physical conditions, general condition of equipment. Obstruction, blocks coverage or access. Device orientation, correct mounting and angle and position. Damage and cleanliness, physical damage and debris, dust. And this is all equipment done annually. So goal, no changes that affect equipment performance. Annual applies to all installed fire alarm equipment. Again, table 14.4.3.2, component number 1, says to see table 14.3.1. So no additional tests beyond this visual inspection table. So basically, this is a once a year, you're doing a full visual inspection. We're going to get more into it, but there's not a physical test component. This is a visual inspection component. So keep that in mind. So it just says component number 1 covers all 8 inspection categories of every piece of installed equipment. So next part, we're on the NFPA 72 14.3.1. Visual inspection, all equipment. Important note, inspection only, done on an annual basis. So, component number 1 requires an annual visual inspection of all installed fire alarm equipment. The purpose is to ensure no changes have occurred that affect equipment performance. Again, references 14.3.4, 14.3.5, per 14.1.6, 2025, if you want to look up all those codes. Inspectors are not required to reevaluate the design adequacy of previously approved systems. Basically means if the fire marshal, city inspector approved the building to be installed that way, you're inspecting the building to see if it is still in that original approved state. You're not telling the client to change a bunch of stuff that is irrelevant to what the original inspector approved. So our test frequency again is going to be annual, and it's going to be all equipment. Again, this is under 14.3.1, component number 1, so the visual inspection table and the first component. So here's going to be hopefully a good amount of information. So ensure there are no changes that affect equipment performance. Inspect all installed fire alarm equipment for each of the following 8 categories. Equipment modifications. Verify no unauthorized or undocumented modifications have been made to any fire alarm device, panel, or component since the last inspection. Again, since the panel was put in, you want to make sure that it is still in its original state. Occupancy building modifications. Verify no building construction, renovation, partition changes, or changes in occupancy use have occurred that would affect the design or coverage of the fire alarm system. I go to a lot of buildings where they are under construction, so they're doing things not necessarily to the fire alarm system, but they are changing the building. So you look for things like that, because if they do make a change to the fire alarm system, you need to note it. Changes in environmental conditions. Inspect for changes in temperature, humidity, dust, corrosive environments, or other ambient conditions that could affect equipment reliability or sensing performance. Great example is rain. Rain getting in somewhere and getting wire wet, corroding it, or heat and temperature. You could see like sun damage on exterior devices of buildings, things like that. You're looking for any kind of weathering or outside damage from kind of just like the elements. Changes in device location. Verify that no devices have been moved, relocated, or repositioned since the last inspection. Any location change must be evaluated against the system's design documentation. So sometimes people will rearrange things in their building. They're not supposed to, with the fire alarm system especially. So you need to make sure that if something was changed, it needs to be noted and documented. Physical conditions. Inspect the overall physical condition of all equipment for signs of wear, weathering, impact, or deterioration that could affect operation. So if something's just really old and damaged or painted over or something, there's devices that have been in buildings for multiple decades. Over time they could get wear and tear. Obstructions. Verify no new storage, shelving, equipment, or structural elements obstruct the coverage area or sensing zone of any device or block access to the panel or field devices. I see this pretty commonly. People will put a shelf in front of a horn strobe or in front of a pull station, like at a doorway they'll put a plant or something like that. Fire life safety devices cannot be obstructed. They need to be visible for a reason. Device orientation. Verify all devices remain in the correct mounting orientation per the manufacturer's installation requirements. Confirm no device has been rotated, tilted, or remounted incorrectly. Imagine if you see a pull station that's supposed to be, vertically mounted, it's like sideways, or a smoke detector like hanging off a ceiling or something, like it's not properly mounted or it's reoriented in an improper way. Physical damage and degree of cleanliness. Inspect for physical damage, cracks, dents, broken covers, and verify all equipment is reasonably clean and free of dust, debris, paint overspray, or other contamination that could affect performance. Over time, you'll see smoke hits crack or pulsations covers crack. There's definitely painters who paint over life safety devices unintentionally, I'm sure. You know, you're looking for little things like that. Just little fractures in the equipment. Any change found in any category must be evaluated. If a change is identified during the inspection, a relocated device, new obstructions, a modified building layout, it must be assessed to determine whether it affects the performance of the fire alarm system. Changes that affect performance must be reported to the building owner and the authority having jurisdiction, AHJ, and corrected before the system is returned to fully compliant status. AHJ is a very common acronym, just like, you know, it could be the marshal, it could be the building owner, it could be a city inspector, you know, whoever the authority is for the building, essentially. This inspection covers every component. Component number 1 applies to all installed equipment without exception. Control units, initiating devices, notification appliance, power supplies, wiring, and all other system components. The 8 inspection categories are evaluated for every piece of equipment in the system, not just selected devices. So everything that fire panel touches, you are visually inspecting it, making sure it's proper. So here we have the NFPA 72, table 14.4.3.2. So this is the testing table for all equipment. And it says right here, see table 14.3.1, as I said earlier. So table 14.4.3.2, component number 1, directs the reader to table 14.3.1. There are no functional test requirements for component number 1 beyond what is specified in the visual inspection table. So just to reiterate, and it says it in the book, it says table 14.4.3.2, the message for component 1 is see table 14.3.1. It doesn't say reserved, it says see table 14.3.1. So component number 1 is fully covered under a visual inspection. So the testing table for component number 1 contains no independent test requirements. It references table 14.3.1 directly, meaning the annual visual inspection described in the inspection table constitutes the full requirement for component number 1 under both tables. No additional functional testing beyond the visual inspection categories is required for this component. Okay? So that was what I'll call a good overview of component number 1 of the visual inspection and the test inspection for these tables. So there's about 30 components total, so we're going to make individual videos for it. So now we'll do a knowledge check. We'll see how much of you or how many of you were paying attention. So component number 1, all equipment. NFPA 72, 2025, table 14.3.1. Select the best answer for each question. Let's see how many of you pay attention. So question 1 of 3. During a component number 1 annual inspection, a technician notices that new storage racks have been installed in a warehouse, and some smoke detectors now have boxes stacked within 2 feet below them. Which inspection category does this fall under, and what action is required? Is it A, physical damage? The detectors may have been bumped during the installation of the racks and should be visually checked for cracks or damage. Is it B, equipment modifications? The racks represent a change to system equipment and must be logged in the record of completion. Is it C, obstructions? New storage that reduces the coverage area or sensing zone of a detector constitutes an obstruction. The change must be evaluated and reported to the building owner and AHJ as it may affect equipment performance. Or is it D, environmental conditions? The storage racks may have changed the airflow patterns in the warehouse, which is an environmental change requiring documentation only. So pick the best answer. Let me know in the comments. All right. Question 2. What does table 14.4.3.2 require for component number 1 testing? And why is this significant? Is it A, an annual functional test of all equipment? Every device must be activated and its response verified at the control unit? Is it B, see Table 14.3.1? There are no separate functional test requirements for component number 1. The visual inspection table contains the full requirement, making the annual inspection the sole obligation for this component under both tables. Is it C, a semi-annual test? Component number 1 testing is more frequent than the inspection because it covers all equipment types. Or is it D, a documentation review only? The technician must verify all prior test records are complete and on file at the premises. Take a guess. What do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. And finally, question number 3. A component number 1 inspection reveals that a pull station near a recently renovated exit has been remounted at an angle. The device is tilted approximately 30 degrees from its original position. Which inspection category applies, and what must the inspector do? Is it A, physical damage? The tilt suggests the device was struck or damaged during renovation. Inspect for cracks and document the finding. Is it B, equipment modifications? The remounting constitutes a modification to the device that must be logged in the record of completion and reported to the AHJ. Is it C, changes in device location? Because the device has moved from its original position, it must be evaluated against the system's design documentation. Or is it D, device orientation? A device remounted at an incorrect angle falls under the orientation category. The inspector must document the finding, evaluate whether it affects performance per the manufacturer's installation requirements, and report it to the building owner and AHJ for correction. Take a guess and let me know in the comments. So, this covers component number 1 of the Table Talk series. So we will go over each one, each component, and again, the goal is to help people better understand the codes. So in my other how-to videos, I'm showing you the practical application of the code as you're doing it on the fire system. And these Table Talk series videos are going to be primarily focused on the codes themselves. So they're going to be a little more theoretical because we're just going to be talking about the codes. But go ahead and try to answer these questions. Let me know in the comments, and I'll let everyone know who's right or wrong. And again, we're going to go component by component, one by one, and we're going to learn more about the code. And this is going to, again, specifically cover the visual inspection table, 14.3.1, and the testing table, which is 14.4.3.2, the chapter 14, NFPA 72. So, thank you for watching, and have a good day.